Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll start with Sky, if there is somebody from Sky here.
Yeah, I'm here, Joe.
After you.
Good evening, Roy. A really decent game that. First time you scored 4 goals in a Premier League game in 2.5 years. I imagine you must have thoroughly enjoyed it.
I did, yeah. The only problem is every time we get a good result, something reminds me of some statistic which isn't quite as positive as perhaps it should be. But I still maintain, unfortunately, that the most important thing in football is to score one more than the opposition.
You'll have appreciated the quality on that free kick by Berriese. Martin Keown said in BT commentary that when a player can achieve that level of elevation and dip on a ball, it almost makes the defensive wall not worth having. What do you think of it?
Yeah, an interesting observation, really. I think there'll always be a wall. I think that it gives the goalkeeper a little bit more satisfaction that something might help him to keep the ball out of the back of the net. But Martin's right. I mean, that really was arguably one of the most perfect free kicks executed, and I don't think a goalkeeper could ever be expected to stop that.
He looked very at home on that stage today, didn't he, Eze?
He did, yeah. I mean, he's looked at home ever since he's arrived. His training sessions have been constantly impressive, and we've always known that there's someone there that we've bought, which we think is the right person to have bought, someone that's going to serve the club in very, very good stead for years to come. But he's had to be a bit patient because also Andros Townsend and Jeff Schlupp are very good players in those positions too. So it's been nice to have that option, as it were, but I think it was the right time today to unleash him, as it were, and he certainly responded and lived up, if you like, to the expectations that I have of him.
You've been critical, Roy, once or twice of VAR in the recent past. What do you think of the interpretation of the laws of the game for Bamford's disallowed goal? Because it seems now that, on the basis of what happened today, that a player can be offside merely by pointing to where he wants the ball.
Well, I don't think there's anything new, is it? I think every week, and not least of all last weekend, there were so many decisions which everyone wanted to contest and suggest were not really correct in terms of the future of the games. So why should this weekend be any different? This might be the first of them, but unfortunately you're speaking to the wrong man if you want sympathy for offside decisions or goals disallowed for unbelievably tight calls, and calls that really one could certainly say had no right to be made, because we have suffered so badly in the last 2 or 3 games with those type of offside goals and disallowed, and not least of all we suffered from a VAR decision which cost us our captain for 3 games.
Bamford said after the game, though, that decisions like that are ruining the game. Peter Crouch said that he's glad he's not playing today if goals are going to be taken away in that manner from strikers. Do you think those two have a point?
Well, I think that VAR was something which was talked about for a long, long time. And if you really want my opinion, I think all it's done, it's replaced the trial by television. It's now trial by referees television as opposed to trial by pundits television, because these lines have been there for a long, long time, and every goal scored has been very, very carefully and analysed in great detail, and quite often the referee and the linesman after the game have been accused of they got it wrong there because our lines show this was an offside decision. We've now replaced that by a group of referees with a television in Stockley Park, and they do the same thing.
Just finally, from me, what did you think of that own goal? Have you ever seen anything like that?
Oh yes, I think you see it quite often. It was unfortunate for the goalkeeper. Of course, when that happens, it's a goalkeeper error, and I'm pretty certain he'll hold his hand up. But I think it's the sort of error that goalkeepers will always make, because in actual fact, there wasn't much chance of Patrick actually probably feeding the ball into the near post from there without the help of that little touch from the defender. And unfortunately, the goalkeeper had speculated that the ball would go across the 6-yard box, which would have been a very dangerous ball had it done so. And he probably thought, this is the thing for me to cut out.
Thanks, Roy. Appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much. We'll go to Paul Jiggins of the Sunday Sun. You need to unmute, please, Paul.
Yep. Hi, Roy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Can I ask you? You seem to be receiving, shall we say, a lot of advice from a gentleman sitting behind you. I believe the Leeds director of football during the game. I just want to know what you thought of that.
Didn't hear it. Oh,
Well, during the game, when you spoke about that maybe you should have put the ball out your team before Eze's free kick because of an injury to a Leeds player who went down, not as a foul, but
I
he
think,
went down.
yes, I think I heard that one, but in actual fact, we were quite prepared to put the ball out, but unfortunately, no sooner the player, uh, no sooner did the player go down, the ball actually bounced forward to one of our players, and he was fouled, and the referee gave a free kick. But had the play continued beyond that, we certainly would have put the ball out of play, just as we did earlier on when one of our players went down, and then we threw it back to them. So, but if you're saying there was a lot of talk from the tribune behind me, it really doesn't interest me, or I certainly can honestly say I didn't hear it because my focus on the game is so intense, so much.
Thank you very much. Awesome.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we go to the Mondays? You can just use the emoji or put your hand up. I can't see anybody asking for a question, so we'll end the press conference there and move on to the Mondays. Who would